Good afternoon and welcome to the 24th Annual Greater Vancouver National Philanthropy Day celebration. My name is Sophia Jan Mohammed and I am the President of the Association of Fundraising Professionals, Greater Vancouver Chapter. With respect and gratitude, I come to you from the traditional unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations, and it brings me great honor to be your host today. This is certainly different from how most of us are used to celebrating National Philanthropy Day and our local Giving Hearts Awards outstanding nominees and winners. While it may be different, the nominees, nominating organizations, and recipients of our awards for 2020 and 2021 are exceptional, and we're so grateful to be able to celebrate their achievements and impacts across the Lower Mainland with all of you today. Please join me in welcoming Mary Durocher, an elder from the Didi Dot Nation.
To begin, I would like to thank the three people of this area, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam, for allowing us to be on their unceded territory. And I thank the Creator for bringing us all together to share different things in life and to learn from one another.
Thank you, Ms. Durocher. Today on National Philanthropy Day, our need to celebrate philanthropy and the role philanthropy plays in our communities is even more important as we look back at the last almost 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic. At today's virtual celebration, we will focus on the essential role philanthropy plays in building vibrant communities, and we will celebrate the deserving individuals and organizations who have been nominated for Giving Hearts Awards, including 9 inspiring award recipients. Before we begin, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our presenting sponsor, RBC, who are joining us to bring greetings. Thank you to the RBC team for their support of National Philanthropy Day again this year. Today would not be possible without the incredible support of all of our sponsors. Thank you to our keynote speaker sponsor, Global Philanthropic. Thank you to this year's Giving Hearts Award sponsors, CAGP, Canada Helps, Givergy, Raffle Nexus, and University of the Fraser Valley. Thank you to our virtual event sponsors, B. Stickman Design, Charity Village, and Hemlock Harling. Thank you to our Spirit of Philanthropy sponsors, Harvey McKinnon and Associates, Mail-O-Matic, Stratcom, and the New School of Fundraising. And thank you to our media sponsor, Miss 604. A big thank you to all of our tremendous sponsors for enabling us to continue celebrating National Philanthropy Day virtually this year. We encourage you to share a photo of you and your team partaking in today's National Philanthropy Day celebration. Post it to social media using the hashtag #WhyItMatters and tag AFP Greater Vancouver And you will be entered to win a gift certificate from Givergy or one of our 4 $250 gift certificates to the New School of Fundraising. Now it's time for what you've all been waiting for, our presentation of the Giving Hearts Awards. On behalf of the AFP Vice President Community Engagement, Kyle Tiney, the National Philanthropy Day Committee, and the Giving Hearts Awards Judicial Panel, I would like to thank everyone who participated in both the 2020 and 2021 Giving Hearts Awards programs, and congratulate everyone that has been nominated here today. Your contributions are truly, truly appreciated. This year, we will be featuring the 2020 Giving Hearts Awards, as well as 2 new award categories for 2021, created specifically to recognize those who stepped up since March 2020 to help our communities respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our first category is Outstanding Small Business. Our nominees are Integra, nominated by Canadian Cancer Society and Women in Insurance Cancer Crusade BC. Smart Wireless, nominated by JDRF BC and Yukon. And the recipient for the Outstanding Small Business Award is Smart Wireless, nominated by JDRF BC and Yukon. Huge congratulations.
So this year marks 30 years of living with type 1 diabetes for me. I was diagnosed at a very young age, and I actually handled it really well back then. I don't think I understood at the time that this was something that I was never going to escape. So I first heard about the JDRF when I was in my 20s, and they were having this walk, and I wanted to attend, but you were supposed to raise funds. So I tried, and I failed miserably. I'm not good at asking people for money. But I still went to the walk because I was curious, and I didn't know anyone else that was diabetic at that time, and I'd already had it for over 10 years. It was an eye-opening experience for me. There were thousands of people there. Everybody who was there was either type 1 diabetic, or they had a child who was type 1, or a sibling or a friend, and that for me was shocking to be surrounded by so many people, and it was so many type 1s. I decided I wanted to do my own fundraising. So I organized a pub night, and it was just a handful of friends. I reserved like 2 tables at a local eatery. And so I watched this small pub night go from 20 friends and renting a few tables to 300 people and looking for ballrooms and maxing it out at 300 because that's all Paul and I can really handle. We went from raising $500 at that first night to over $70,000 at our last event. And I wish I could describe the feeling when you're in that room at that event. I would say it is electric. We had one fundraiser where I literally on the mic was like, you get a phone, you get a phone, you get a phone. I felt like Oprah. Positive energy, everyone's writing donation checks, and it is the best feeling in the world. Okay, thank you so much for this award. It really means a lot to me and to my family.
The next category is Outstanding Corporation. The nominees are E.B. Horseman and Son, nominated by BC Children's Hospital Foundation. Glotman Simpson Consulting Engineers, nominated by BC Cancer Foundation. Grosvenor Americas, nominated by VGH and UBC Hospital Foundation. Neptune Terminals, nominated by Capilano University and North Shore Neighborhood House. Nicola Wealth, nominated by Covenant House Vancouver and Canuck Place Children's Hospice. Odlum Brown Limited, nominated by Canadian Cancer Society and United Way of the Lower Mainland. Otter Co-op, nominated by Canuck Place Children's Hospice. Pacific Blue Cross, nominated by BC Women's Health Foundation. RLC Park Services, nominated by Ronald McDonald House, British Columbia and Yukon. Southern Railway of British Columbia, nominated by Royal Columbian Hospital Foundation. The Capilano Group, nominated by BC Professional Firefighters Burn Fund. And White Spot, nominated by Zajac Ranch Society. The recipient for the Outstanding Corporation Award is Odlum Brown, nominated by Canadian Cancer Society and United Way of the Lower Mainland. Congratulations.
Not only are we an independent firm, but we're an employee-owned firm. And so there's a real ability to control our own destiny, to run the business the way we as employee owners want to run it. Victor Odlum, who was one of the founders of our firm, was one of the original directors of the United Way, I think in 1931. So the history with the firm and the United Way goes back a very long way. One of my most favorite events that we do is we run a family feud. We modeled it after the TV show, and it was a lot of fun. You know, we really believe that philanthropy is about an act. You know, it's an act of volunteerism, it's an act of donorship, could be just an act of kindness. And after the Lytton fires this summer, the United Way operated pop-up summer camps in Lytton to help out families, you know, who basically lost everything. And that's exactly the thing that I want to be aligned around. So one of the reasons that we do so much work with the Canadian Cancer Society is because it started with the CIBC Run for the Cure. It really became a celebratory event. You know, we would all go out and participate in the run and raise money, and it just became kind of part of what we do, and we could make a difference, and we did. On behalf of all my colleagues at Odlum Brown, I'd like to say thank you so much for this Giving Hearts Award. It's just outstanding, and thank you so much.
The next category is Outstanding Volunteer Fundraiser, generously sponsored by Givergy. The nominees are Matt August, nominated by Ronald McDonald House, BC and Yukon. Dr. Genevieve Burley, nominated by BC Women's Health Foundation. Vicky and Carrie Kinsley, nominated by Canadian Cancer Society. And Mel Zajac, nominated by Zajac Ranch Society. The recipient of the Outstanding Volunteer Fundraiser Award is Mel Zajac, nominated by Zajac Ranch Society. Congratulations, Mel.
I worked for a building supply place, and the fellow next door to me, he said, "You got a lot of energy, kid. You should build a house." I said, "Never build a house." That was my start at my construction. We went on from there. We built that first one, then we built another one. It was 12 suiter, went to 21 suiter, and then we built a high rise, which was 42 suites. That was in 1959. I'm a very innovative guy. I'm known in the city, City Hall. Every time they need something done, they always called me. I brought Bob Hoban for the BC Lions dinner. I paved the street. I paid it out of my own money because the state said we can't do it. I put all the power lines on the lane where I built the building underground. BC Hydro said, "You're crazy. I want them underground. I don't want no wires." That was 1967. But I was doing always charity work right out of school. I did charity work. The mandate is to help children and seniors. And this camp is something where kids with disability can go out to a camp. We have everything there for disabilities. We have a medical building at site. We have nurses 24 hours a day. I got involved because these people needed help. And I went ahead and I finished the project, and I still run the project. It's now 21 years old or 22 years old. I'm not retiring till I'm 98 years old. Then I want to relax. On the weekend I was chopping wood. And my wife doesn't like me doing that, but I still chop wood. I'm very grateful to be honored to have this award. I'm very pleased. Thank you very much.
The next category is Outstanding Legacy Philanthropist, generously sponsored by CAGP. The nominees are the McCarthy family, nominated by BC Cancer Foundation and Burnaby Hospital Foundation. Dr. John McNeil, nominated by Heart and Stroke Foundation Canada and University of British Columbia. Dr. A.H. Somji, nominated by Simon Fraser University and Lionsgate Hospital Foundation. Andy and Cheryl Socks, nominated by Alzheimer's Society of BC. The recipient for the Outstanding Legacy Philanthropist Award is the McCarthy family, nominated by BC Cancer Foundation and Burnaby Hospital Foundation. The McCarthy family joins us remotely today to accept their award.
My grandfather decided to emigrate from Slovakia, and he chose Canada. He arrived with $12 in his pocket. Very humble man, very humble beginnings, self-made. And from a very early age, he always said to me, he said, "Bill, we can never repay Canada for what it's given us, but we'll try." So our contributions to BC Cancer are generally on the focus of education and research. And that goes on everything from radiation treatment to chemotherapy. I've been a long-time supporter of Burnaby Hospital. I've had the honor of chairing their foundation. All five of my family, immediate family, mom, dad, brother, sister, and myself were born at Burnaby Hospital. As chair of BC Cancer Foundation's board of directors, it's first and foremost, it's an incredible honor and it's incredibly rewarding. We have a very appropriate motto at BC Cancer, which is that cancer doesn't stop, we can't either. Our vision is to have world-class cancer care and research delivered to all British Columbians. I think really what my dad and I are most excited about is this incredible opportunity for BC Cancer Clinic to be at the new Burnaby Hospital. And this brings together the two philanthropic causes that have been so important to our family for generations. So we couldn't be happier with this timing, and for this to happen while my dad is chairing the fundraising cabinet for the new Burnaby Hospital and while I'm chairing the BC Cancer Foundation Board of Directors is very special.
The next category is Outstanding Youth Philanthropist, generously sponsored by University of the Fraser Valley. The nominees are Jason Guo, nominated by BCSPCA. Risa Jose, nominated by Corpus Christi College. Sophia Leva, nominated by JDRF BC and Yukon. And Casey Wright, nominated by Canadian Cancer Society and BC Children's Hospital Foundation. The recipient of the Outstanding Youth Philanthropist Award is Jason Guo. Jason is currently studying abroad and he joins us remotely to accept their award.
I always wanted a pet my entire life, especially a dog. And my cousin knew about it, so without any notice to me, he wanted to surprise me a little bit. So he got a dog from China, and unfortunately, during transport, the pet didn't survive. So I was never really able to bring the pet home. That experience taught me that these tragedies can happen to anyone. So this experience motivated me to start the Dora Foundation, which sought to raise money and awareness to help organizations such as the BCSPCA and allow pets to have more of a voice in our society. I think the reason why the BCSPCA really appealed to me is because they really do care for the animals. So, for example, the BCSPCA does rescues. They also do cruelty investigations. After COVID hit, obviously we can no longer do the same in-person strategy, but to a certain extent the silver lining was that it pushed us to expand our fundraisers. So instead of just seeking support from people we know, we organized debate tournaments. Through all our efforts combined over the past 2 years, we were able to raise close to $20,000 for BCSPCA and for other organizations such as RAPS in Richmond, which were able to reach a much wider audience. And in particular, it reached a lot of elementary school students and their parents.
Our next category is Outstanding Philanthropist. The nominees are Arnold and Anita Seaver, nominated by Ronald McDonald House, British Columbia and Yukon. Delia Vischer, nominated by Alzheimer's Society of BC. And Dennis and Phyllis Washington Foundation, nominated by Royal Columbian Hospital Foundation. The recipient for the Outstanding Philanthropist Award is Dennis and Phyllis Washington Foundation, nominated by Royal Columbian Hospital Foundation. We are delighted to have Jeff Norris, CEO of Royal Columbian Hospital Foundation, join us today to share the impact of the Dennis and Phyllis Washington Foundation.
Dennis and Phyllis Washington are quite amazing people. When you trace them back to their original days, it's a true sort of rags to riches story. Dennis was out on his own at 14 trying to make his way into the world, and luckily he found Phyllis, I think about the age 30. So in 1964, they started their very first company together. They didn't have the funds to get it off the ground on their own, so they went out and took a loan. He's owner of C-SPAN Shipping, which we're quite familiar with here in BC, and Southern Railway, familiar here in BC, as well as many other companies across North America. Incredibly successful family. So at Royal Columbian Hospital, we're going through a $1.4 billion redevelopment of the hospital. We're almost expanding the hospital by twice its size as we go through. And that's super important because the hospital, of course, serves population base. It's nearing about 2 million people in really, really complex areas. One of the most important areas that we serve the population is that we're the only hospital that actually has the facilities in BC to treat both sick mothers and sick babies. And then we also have neurosurgery units, cardiac surgery units, trauma units, some of the best interventional cardiology units and interventional care available. So mothers and babies from across the province come to our site. Phyllis is an incredible matriarch of the family, and if you look down the list of her bio, she chairs or leads a number of their companies, and of course, I think really brings the heart to the Phyllis and Dennis Washington Foundation and making sure that those people that need a lift up really get the lift they're requiring. How they do their business, I think, is really making sure that they're giving back to where their employees live and work and make their environments a better place. Huge congratulations to Dennis and Phyllis Washington for being outstanding philanthropists. Amazing people stepping up across North America to make people's lives better. Congratulations to AFP for recognizing them and all the wonderful work you do for philanthropy here in BC.
Our next category is Outstanding Philanthropist Supporting a Large Organization. The nominees are the Greshmill family, nominated by BC Children's Hospital Foundation and Richmond Hospital Foundation, and Dr. Rudy and Mrs. Patricia North, nominated by Faculty of Medicine at University of British Columbia and David Suzuki Foundation. The recipient for the Outstanding Philanthropist Award is Dr. Rudy and Mrs. Patricia North, nominated by Faculty of Medicine at University of British Columbia and David Suzuki family. Congratulations, Dr. and Mrs. North.
We met skiing, and that was slightly false pretenses because I was mad keen on skiing and Rudy had all the equipment but wasn't really much of a skier. But it worked out nevertheless, and we had a good time on the après-ski things.
The Great Bear Rainforest was a name invented for the coastal rainforest in BC. And we have the largest intact rainforest in the world. And there was concern that it was going to be logged the same way that Vancouver Island had been. Very important for fisheries as well, because I'd long come to the realization that fisheries was a lot more than just trying to manage fish. You had to manage the whole environment, and very importantly, forests.
You're always hoping that it's going to build and go on further, and it's very exciting in Vancouver, I think, to see the number of organizations which have started very small and have grown to be very, very successful organizations.
I like getting in at the beginning. I feel that, $10 at the beginning of something that is a good idea is worth more than $10,000 20 years later.
Our next category is Community Pandemic Response Business Award, generously sponsored by Raffle Nexus. The nominees are Big Feet Health Group, nominated by Canadian Cancer Society. Blue Arc Private Equity, nominated by Canuck Place Children's Hospice. Burnaby Firefighters, nominated by Royal Columbian Hospital Foundation. Coast Capital Savings, nominated by Take a Hike Foundation. Concord Pacific, nominated by BC Cancer Foundation and St. Paul's Foundation. Darwin Properties, nominated by Family Services of the North Shore. Inland and Case Construction Equipment, nominated by Ronald McDonald House BC and Yukon. Lift, nominated by Covenant House Vancouver. Prometheus Private Advisory Group, nominated by Leukemia Lymphoma Society of Canada. Stigma Free Society, nominated by Stigma Free Society. TELUS Friendly Future Foundation, nominated by VGH and UBC Hospital Foundation. TELUS Friendly Future Foundation, nominated by BC Children's Hospital Foundation. University of the Fraser Valley staff and faculty, nominated by University of the Fraser Valley. And World Financial Group, nominated by Surrey Hospitals Foundation. The recipient for the Community Pandemic Response Business Award is Coast Capital Savings, nominated by Take a Hike Foundation. Huge congratulations to Coast Capital.
Coast Capital Savings is a social purpose, member-owned financial cooperative. During the pandemic, Coast Capital Savings created the Coast Capital Savings COVID Relief Fund. Our team knew that we had to react quickly. We were hearing from many of our community partners as well as business partners. So we reacted very fast. We actually developed this fund within about a few weeks. Typically this type of fund would have taken about 6 to 12 months to create, and we reacted very quickly and were able to disperse these funds out the door. "69% of youth were negatively impacted by the pandemic. That's why it was so important to Coast Capital that we provide this support to the Take a Hike Foundation. So Take a Hike has been a partner of ours actually for about 10 years now. And when we developed the Community Relief Fund, they reached out to us for funding. Take a Hike supports vulnerable youth who aren't able to attend the mainstream school system. They reached out to their families very quickly to ensure their health and safety. They quickly developed a program where they could support these youth and their families by providing counseling support either by phone or online. Coast Capital Savings has a Help Heroes volunteer program where we encourage our staff to volunteer their time out in our local communities. In fact, we actually provide them with a free day to go out and volunteer in their local communities. On behalf of Coast Capital Savings, all of our members and all of our staff, I want to say a big thank you to the Take a Hike Foundation for nominating us for this Community Pandemic Response Award.
Our final category is Community Pandemic Response Individual Award, generously sponsored by Canada Helps. The nominees are Howard Blank, nominated by 64 Media, Miss 604. Christmas Bureau Volunteer Lead Group, nominated by Family Services of the North Shore. The Conconi Family, nominated by VGH and UBC Hospital Foundation and St. Paul's Foundation. Reverend Dr. Thomas Cooper, nominated by World Vision Canada. Manjeet Litt, nominated by Surrey Hospitals Foundation. Crystal Parabu, nominated by Hogan's Alley Society. Linda Wong, nominated by Canadian Cancer Society. Dr. Joseph Wask, nominated by Simon Fraser University. And Jonathan Baird Young and Landon Brown, nominated by BC Children's Hospital Foundation. The recipient for the Community Pandemic Response Individual Award is the Christmas Bureau Volunteer Lead Group, nominated by Family Services of the North Shore. Congratulations.
Family Services of the North Shore focuses on the community of the North Shore, and we provide counseling and support systems for families in need. March 2020 happened, and as we all know, everything went sideways. So then what we started to do was starting to call our clients just to do a check-in, to see how everybody was doing. What we were finding was that there was this loneliness, this sense of loneliness, and this sense of despair, and people were hungry. There was this senior, we called her and we realized that she had no family. She was home alone and she had lost weight and she was basically living on tea and toast. We're like, there's something wrong here. How are we going to fix it? We started making hearts and we started making bags and we started making these masks and we sold them. And 100% of those proceeds went to buying groceries, which we bagged and we individualized per clients, and then we found the logistics to try to figure out how to get it to them, and it was amazing. When you have to give. It's just, that's how I was raised, and that is our community. They help us. You get a sheet of what these kids ask for, and it was obscure stuff. 10 o'clock at night, before the family was supposed to come and pick it up the next day, we were looking through this thing and this pile of toys came from our firefighters. What was in there? Everything that family wanted and asked for was there. You know, do I believe in Santa? You betcha. I want to thank you and bring in all the other volunteers that helped make this happen. So ladies, this is for you. We did it, ladies. Good job, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
A huge congratulations and a thank you to all of these generous individuals and corporations. The work that they have all done to support our local nonprofits and positively change our Greater Vancouver communities is really truly inspiring and greatly appreciated. Thank you also to all of the nominating organizations for sharing the inspiring nominations with us all. We are so fortunate to be part of the incredible philanthropic community that we are in. We would also like to give a big thank you to the staff and students at In Focus Film School for their hard work putting together all of the award videos. I'm delighted that today we are joined by Nurjeen Hassam, Associate Vice President and Chief Student Health Officer at the University of British Columbia. This new role at UBC oversees health services, brings a public health lens to health and well-being, and leads the implementation of various strategic plans, including advancing Indigenous cultural safety and humility, anti-racism, environmental health and climate change, as well as equity, diversity, and inclusion. Prior to UBC, Nurjeen led the BC Centre for Disease Control as Chief Operating Officer. In this role, Nurjeen was a key leader of the COVID-19 emergency response and was the Emergency Operations Chief of Vaccine Logistics for the province. During her time at BCCDC, Nurjeen had oversight over the full range of public health services and had direct responsibility for Indigenous health. Nurjeen is recognized for her commitment to addressing social justice and human rights concerns and shifting the culture of organizations to address racism, advance the truth and reconciliation calls to action, and ensure gender rights and health equity. Most recently, Nurjeen was a panel member at the first National Anti-Asian Racism Forum and was the 2021 recipient of the YWCA Women of Distinction Award for Reconciliation in Action as an Indigenous ally. Welcome, Nurjeen.
Yali Madad. Hello. My name is Nurjeen Hassam. Thank you for having me here today. I've been invited to speak to you about the work that I do in truth and reconciliation. Working for social justice has been a thread throughout my life. In 2005, I began my journey of understanding Indigenous rights. Over the last 7 years, as Chief Operating Officer of the BC Centre for Disease Control, this learning shifted to action. This year, I was honored as the recipient of the YWCA Women of Distinction Award for Reconciliation in Action as an Indigenous ally. My biggest honor, however, was being nominated by my team, a team of Indigenous and non-Indigenous people working at BCCDC, all working towards Indigenous rights. And without that team, none of this work would have happened. I am particularly grateful for being here today with you as fundraising professionals and donors, because while I believe truth and reconciliation is everyone's work, what's more is that I believe you, in your profession, have an opportunity to influence change and priorities in a way few others have. But let me confess, there are no 3 easy steps to this work. Instead, I will share my personal journey for how I moved from a place of not knowing how to advance Indigenous rights to a place where I felt I could take action as an ally. Before I begin, I would like to make a few acknowledgements. There are 2 people who have influenced my work. They have guided and supported me, and most important, laughed with me. Recently, they honored me with the blanketing ceremony and embraced me as family. Harlan Pruden is from the Cree Nation. He works locally, nationally, and internationally with and for the Two-Spirit community. Currently, he works as the Knowledge Translation Lead at the BC Centre for Disease Control, and he's doing his PhD at SFU. I would be nowhere on this journey if not for the balancing nature of Jessica Chenery. When she and I first stepped into an honest, open, and forgiving relationship as colleagues, this relationship opened the floodgates of the work that was to come. Jessica is a senior leader in public health. She is of mixed heritage, settler, and Indigenous bloodlines. Her family name is Sylvie. She is the descendant of Portuguese Joe Sylvie #1, the #1 signifying the first Portuguese man recognized as a citizen of this newly formed colony, British Columbia. Her grandmother Della comes from Penelakut and Heiltsuk First Nations. It is with their permission that I share excerpts of their bios, but for me, acknowledging them is important. It is also important for me to acknowledge the Coast Salish people on whose land I'm speaking today. This land was shared by many First Nations, and I am an uninvited guest to this land. I acknowledge this land to honor and give respect to all those who have and are protecting these lands. A land acknowledgement for me is like a compass pointing north toward truth and reconciliation. In the same way that as an Ismaili Muslim, the thought Bismillah allows me to begin my day, my meal, and even my presentation. Both of these are acts of deference, respect, and gratitude for what comes next. As I created the story that I would share with you today, I thought it might be helpful to weave in some themes in order to make this flowing journey a bit more concrete. So I organized my journey into 6 actions: learning and internalizing knowledge, speaking my truth and building my community, taking ownership of work as a non-Indigenous person, acting to address power imbalances, and my 2 favorites, getting out of the way and defending Indigenous self-determination. And while I am sharing these in order, there is no straight line to this work. There is always movement back and forth, and this fluidity is magic. So let me speak about each one of these in turn. Many of you today will be ahead of the game in terms of learning. When I first started on this journey, it was difficult to find information about Indigenous rights. Today, the credible first-hand information is easy to find. A simple search will pull up courses, curriculum, webinars, books, movies, all to teach you about Indigenous history, the history of our nation, and the violence and harm caused to Indigenous people. If you are willing to spend the time, you can learn about racism and its impacts. You can learn about the missing and murdered women, the 60s scoop, residential schools, and the children. You can learn about smallpox, broken treaties, and the Indian Act. You can learn about land claims, fishing rights, displacement, and access to natural resources. It is all connected. For me, an area of focus was the health impacts of Indigenous racism. The point is, if you are interested in working toward truth and reconciliation, you must start with the truth. And a part of that truth is our history of racism and our current racism and discrimination toward Indigenous people. The other part of the truth, and equally important, is inward. I uncovered my own prejudices, implicit and explicit biases, my own skewed interpretations of the world, and how my thinking was colonized. I engage in a process of critical self-reflection every day. Truth and reconciliation work starts with truth. The truth of our history, the truth of our discriminatory and racist practices and systems, and the truth of ourselves. We must start with the truth. Over time, the learning that I was taking in became knowledge. That knowledge shifted my understanding of the truth of the world. Let me say that again because we don't always have awareness of that process. That knowledge became my truth. This internal shift was critical, not just for my own connections to this work, but because it laid the foundation for the next action, speaking my truth and building my community. This was lonely at first. Imagine being the only person at a table who would participate in a land acknowledgement. Imagine being the only one who would introduce themselves in a good way that acknowledged their status as a settler or an uninvited guest. Or the only one who would bring up issues of race, racial inequity, and Indigenous rights. That was me. And I was also the only racialized person on the table. My comments didn't change the practices at work at first, but what it did change is it was building my community. People I worked with began to understand who I was and what I believed, and I put my cards on the table even when others held theirs close. Speaking my truth and building my community was hard. In the beginning, even though there were others who shared my values, the culture of our organization was such that people didn't feel safe to speak them. Issues of social justice and race were not mainstream topics. Indigenous rights were not our issue. People thought that my formal power gave me the strength to speak up, but it didn't. What gave me the strength was knowing that if I spoke, it might make it a little bit easier for somebody else to speak. I, too, fought the very strong culture that pushed me to be silent. And things changed. People with similar beliefs began to connect. More and more people spoke about Indigenous rights and social justice, and we became a community. At this point, we fumbled bringing people together. We tried informal and formal ways, committees, food, learning, anything to bring people together. I had a number of one-to-one meetings with people where we would just ask, what do we do next? It was frustrating. I felt it was aimless, but Jessica understood. She was patient. She knew that it was important to let the relationships and trust build amongst this community. She taught me that building the relationships was the work. And she was right. The relationships became the solid foundation for all of the work that came next. Truth and reconciliation is about changing who we are, the culture of our organization and the way we feel and act towards Indigenous people and towards issues that concern Indigenous people. It was about creating a safe workplace for our Indigenous staff and clients. This was internally focused work, and despite numerous challenges, we, as non-Indigenous allies, had to own this work. People wanted Indigenous people to lead this work. There was a resistance to taking ownership. The mentality was, this is an Indigenous problem. They should fix it. I saw things differently. I believed it was not up to the Indigenous people in the organization to teach us the truth, to challenge our privilege. That was up to us. I defended time and time again that we should not burden our Indigenous partners with this. Only we could examine our racism, white supremacy, our colonizing ways, and our privilege. This was our work. And we embarked on that work with very courageous conversations. Along this journey of learning and internalizing, speaking and building community, injustices began to be revealed. The power structure of Indigenous health was one such injustice. Indigenous health was buried deep in the organization. This program was built over 30 years ago. It had served hundreds of First Nations people across dozens of First Nations communities across British Columbia, but it barely held a line on the budget. Smaller, less impactful programs run by non-Indigenous people were much better resourced and supported. We set our sights then to correct this unfair power imbalance and to raise the profile of this program. Our goal was to ensure Indigenous health had a seat at the table, where they could continue to practice self-determination but also influence public health practice. We had no idea how hard this would be, and all the dominoes that had to be placed in order for this change to happen. Luckily, we just started laying dominoes along this long road. My last two actions, getting out of the way and defending self-determination, are best illustrated with an example. At the same time as we were working across the organization to address racist beliefs and to fix power imbalances and resource inequities, but had not yet succeeded, an incredible opportunity came up. There was a very large grant available from a public granting organization, and I knew I could apply for this grant and very likely be successful in getting significant funding for the Indigenous Health Program. I saw this as a win. To my surprise, the program didn't want me to do that. Instead, they wanted to work with the granting organization to change the way they offer grants to Indigenous programs. They wanted those grants to be more meaningful, culturally appropriate, and respectful to Indigenous communities. From there, they and we embarked on a multi-year process of engaging with that granting organization to help them understand that the way they were doing work was not culturally appropriate. Eventually, that granting organization understood and shifted the criteria. And they learned. And now those learnings are part of their way of being. That process taught me about self-determination and patience and listening and getting out of the way of the real work that needed to be done. In the last few years, much of the work that we had been doing across the organization materialized. We made progress with cultural humility, anti-racism, power funding imbalances, prioritization of work, self-determination, strategic priorities, you name it, things were better. There was much work to be done, but things had improved. The dominoes had fallen and set off a machine that was much, much bigger than me. But it was not the end of my work, because despite the gains, we were constantly challenged. Now, a big part of my role was to promote and defend the work and the people. At every opportunity, I sought to tell people about who we were as an organization and what we had achieved. I was rewriting the story, changing the narrative. I and many others were changing the narrative, the organizational narrative, to be one where the shifts towards anti-racism and Indigenous rights were not what we did, but who we are. We told that story. It's no coincidence to me that the work that we did as change agents perfectly aligned to a theory of happiness. The author of the book, The Power of Meaning, Emily Esfahani Smith, talks about 4 pillars of happiness: belonging, purpose, transcendence, and storytelling. These 4 pillars resonate with my journey of truth and reconciliation. By doing this work on truth and reconciliation, I found a community of people where I belonged. We together had an ultimate purpose that was much bigger than our roles. There were moments of transcendence in this work, times when I was in the zone, where I had a flow, where I was joyfully lost in the work. And storytelling, Emily's 4th pillar, writing and rewriting our personal and collective narratives, the constant rewriting and retelling of our stories as individuals, as teams, as an organization. Those acts of storytelling and meaning making, well, ultimately, that was the work that we did. And why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because I want you to know that before anything else, this work of fighting for Indigenous rights, of anti-racism, and of truth and reconciliation is not a problem to be fixed. Engaging in this work and having the privilege of serving others and rewriting our collective narrative is happiness. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nurjeen. On behalf of the Association of Fundraising Professionals, Greater Vancouver Chapter, we thank you sincerely for joining us today. As citizens, we all play an important role in building healthy communities. Because of each and every one of you joining us today, we are enriching the lives of our friends, families, and neighbors. A reminder that it is still not too late to share a photo of you and your team partaking in today's National Philanthropy Day celebration. You can post it to social media using the hashtag #WhyItMatters. And don't forget to tag AFP Greater Vancouver to be entered to win a gift certificate from Givergy or one of our $250 gift certificates to the new School of Fundraising. Make sure you post it today to be eligible. Congratulations again to our Giving Hearts Awards nominees. It's been such an incredible day with moving stories, and in a world where there is an endless amount of stressful news, it has been inspiring to spend today with you celebrating so much positivity. Thank you to our sponsors, including our presenting sponsor RBC, to the 2021 National Philanthropy Day Committee, and a very special thank you to Rachel Zapp and Lucia Sham-Turner, co-chairs of the National Philanthropy Day. It has been my true pleasure being here with you all today. Although we couldn't be gathered together in person, I feel the same inspiration and positivity as I have after previous celebrations, and hope you do too. Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you back next year for what will be a very momentous occasion as we mark the 25th anniversary of our National Philanthropy Day celebration. And of course, we hope that it is a celebration that we'll be able to do once again together in person. Take care, everyone, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.